Every 25 seconds, someone in the US is arrested for a property-related crime. But what actually makes a crime a crime? And why do some crimes shock us while others quietly ruin lives? Crime isn't just what we see on the news. It's not always a masked intruder or a high-speed chase. Crime comes in many forms, some violent, some silent, and some hiding behind spreadsheets. Today, we'll break down the 6 core types of crime that shape our world, our fears, and our justice system. For most people, crime seems black and white. Murder is bad. Theft is wrong. But the legal and psychological anatomy of crime is much more complex. There are different types of crime, each with unique motivations, patterns, victims, and consequences. And the confusion doesn't stop with the public. Even in the courtroom, understanding what kind of crime was committed can change everything, from the sentence handed down to the way the public reacts. Is hacking a computer really the same as breaking into a house? Is a corporate scammer as dangerous as a serial killer? If you've ever been confused by these questions, you're not alone. So let's clear the fog and dive into the 6 major types of crime you need to know. Let's explore these 6 core types of crime. 1. Violent crimes. Definition. These are crimes where the offender uses or threatens force against a victim. They include murder, assault, rape, and robbery. Key characteristics. A. Always involve physical harm or threat of it. A. Often emotionally driven. Rage, jealousy, fear. A. High rates of arrest and public outrage. Example case. In 2019, the tragic murder of college student Tessa Majors shocked the nation. She was stabbed in a New York City park in what seemed like a robbery. But the violent nature and randomness of the attack elevated public fear, prompting citywide reform on youth violence. The psychology behind violent crime. Violent crimes are often fueled by intense emotional responses, mental illness, or a background of trauma. Many violent offenders have experienced neglect, abuse, or socioeconomic hardship. Others act impulsively, without premeditation, in moments of rage or desperation. There are also those rare but chilling cases where violence is calculated, planned meticulously, carried out with cold precision. These are the crimes that terrify us most because they reveal a predator rather than a person lost in the heat of the moment. Societal impact. Violent crime tends to dominate headlines. It creates fear, sparks political debates, and often leads to sweeping law enforcement reforms. Communities affected by violent crime may experience lasting trauma and economic decline. 2. Property crimes. Definition. These crimes involve theft or destruction of someone else's property, without necessarily involving force or threat. Think burglary, larceny, motor vehicle theft, and arson. Key characteristics. A. Usually financially motivated. It can be planned or opportunistic. A. High volume but lower public profile than violent crime. Example case. The infamous Pink Panthers, an international gang of jewel thieves, stole over $500 million in diamonds across Europe and Asia. Their elegant, swift operations involved little violence, but huge losses. Why people commit property crimes. The motivations vary widely. Poverty, addiction, greed, or even thrill-seeking. Some offenders steal out of necessity, others out of desire. The line between need and want can blur quickly when desperation or entitlement enters the picture. Tools of the trade. Property criminals might use anything from crowbars to computers. A car thief might use signal relays to steal keyless vehicles. An arsonist might use chemicals or accelerants. And some burglars study floor plans or watch homes for days before striking. Societal impact. While not as fear-inducing as violent crime, property crime creates billions in financial losses every year. It drives up insurance costs, erodes community trust, and in some cases, escalates into more serious criminal behavior. 3. White-collar crimes. Definition. Non-violent crimes committed for financial gain, typically in professional environments. Includes embezzlement, fraud, insider trading, and money laundering. Key characteristics. A. Often committed by respected individuals. A. Victims don't always realize they've been harmed until much later. It can cause massive economic damage. Example case. Bernie Madoff's Ponzi scheme is the most infamous white-collar crime in U.S. history. It destroyed thousands of lives and defrauded investors out of $65 billion, all while he maintained a facade of professionalism and trust. The hidden nature of white-collar crime. These crimes are insidious. They don't involve a masked burglar or a violent assault. They happen in offices, behind spreadsheets, with boardroom smiles and forged signatures. That makes them harder to detect, but no less devastating. Motivations. White-collar criminals are often driven by greed, ambition, or a sense of invincibility. Some begin with small infractions that snowball over time. Others plan massive frauds from the beginning, cloaked in legitimacy. Societal impact. White-collar crime erodes trust in institutions. It affects the stock market, retirement accounts, healthcare systems, and more. Despite its reach, it is often punished less severely than street crime, a controversial aspect of modern justice systems. 4. Organized crime. Definition. Criminal activities carried out by structured groups, typically with the aim of profit and power. Includes drug trafficking, human trafficking, illegal gambling, and arms smuggling. Key characteristics. A structured, hierarchical groups. A high coordination across regions and even borders. A often involves corruption or infiltration of legitimate institutions. Example case. The Italian mafia, particularly the Sicilian Cosa Nostra, influenced governments, controlled drug routes, and enforced power through extortion and violence. Their reach was global, but their crimes were often hidden under layers of legitimate businesses. How they operate. Organized crime groups are like corporations, with chains of command, roles, rules, and ruthless enforcement. They may run legitimate operations on the surface, like construction firms or restaurants, while laundering money and trafficking illegal goods behind the scenes. The global impact. Organized crime fuels other crimes. Bribery, violence, trafficking. It destabilizes governments, especially in regions where law enforcement is weak or compromised. Fighting it requires international cooperation and intelligence. Cultural myth versus reality. Pop culture has romanticized organized crime. The Godfather, Scarface, and other media portray these figures as tragic anti-heroes. But the real picture is darker. Systemic abuse, ruthless violence, and lives destroyed in the pursuit of power. 5. Cybercrime. Definition. Any criminal activity that involves a computer, network, or digital data. This includes hacking, identity theft, cyberstalking, and ransomware attacks. Key characteristics. A. Technologically driven. A. Often anonymous and hard to trace. A. Increasing in frequency and sophistication. Example case. The 2017 WannaCry ransomware attack infected over 200,000 computers in 150 countries, locking users out of their data unless they paid Bitcoin ransoms. Hospitals, governments, and banks were all affected, revealing just how vulnerable we are in the digital age. The digital battlefield. Hackers operate in the shadows of the internet, some seeking financial gain, others aiming for chaos, and some with political motives. State-sponsored cybercrime has become a new kind of warfare. Victims and vulnerability. Anyone can be a victim. Individuals, corporations, hospitals, even entire cities. A single phishing email or outdated software can open the floodgates to catastrophic data breaches. The future of crime. As we rely more on digital platforms, cybercrime is expected to eclipse traditional crime. Identity theft, financial fraud, and digital blackmail are becoming more common, demanding new forms of digital defense. 6. Public order crimes. Definition. These are crimes that interfere with the normal operations of society and violate shared norms. Examples include drug use, prostitution, disorderly conduct, and public intoxication. Key characteristics. A often considered victimless, though they can ripple into larger issues. A frequently policed based on cultural, moral, or political climates. A disproportionately affect marginalized communities. Example case. In 1971, the U.S. government launched the War on Drugs, leading to mass incarceration for low-level drug offenses, particularly targeting Black and Latino communities. The societal cost was massive, even as the effectiveness of the crackdown remained hotly debated. The moral debate. Public order crimes sit in a gray zone. Is someone smoking marijuana harming society? Should prostitution be criminalized or regulated? These questions blur the line between crime and personal freedom, raising moral, legal, and ethical concerns. Impact on justice and society. These crimes often flood court systems and jails with non-violent offenders. Critics argue that criminalizing certain behaviors does more harm than good, fueling cycles of poverty, stigma, and repeat offenses. The changing landscape. Many public order laws are being re-examined. Marijuana is now legal in many U.S. states. Cities are decriminalizing sex work. The definition of crime itself is shifting as society evolves. Crime isn't one thing, it's many things. From the emotional explosion behind a violent act to the cold calculation of a financial fraud, each type of crime reveals something different about human nature, societal values, and systemic flaws. Understanding these 6 categories doesn't just make us smarter. It makes us more aware, more compassionate, more capable of demanding change. Because the better we understand crime, the better we can prevent it, respond to it, and, most importantly, build a society where fewer people fall through the cracks in the first place. If you found this breakdown eye-opening, make sure to like, subscribe, and share. And drop a comment. What type of crime do you think deserves more attention, and why?